Welcome to Martha Runs the World, a podcast with a new take on running, fitness, and all things health-oriented. I'm Martha Hughes, your host, and each week I present a new topic that is of interest to all runners. Hi, and welcome to episode 341 of Martha Runs the World. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it each and every week. I haven't run any races in Europe, but I've watched videos of ultra races, and there are a couple huge differences between those races and American races. One of the differences is in most European races, they don't allow pacers. The other difference is that you'll see lots of the runners in those ultra races on trails that use trekking poles. Why don't American trail runners use trekking poles more? Well, I'm not sure about that, but I do know that they're starting to use them more frequently. Many runners in America haven't used them because it was never a part of the American running culture in the past. Or maybe it's just out of sheer stubbornness. Maybe they think that they're not being tough enough if they use poles, or it's not cool, or something like that. I'm not sure. But this week, I'm going to talk about how you can use poles and why you might consider them. I am by no means an expert. Trust me, I'm not. But I do use certain tools when I run, and they do help me a lot. And one thing I would usually almost always take with me, especially if the trail has any kinds of elevation or technicality with it, are trekking poles. Part of it is because I'm less sure of myself than I used to be because of my fall. That is true. Will I ever get my self-confidence back on the trails? I don't know. But at this point, it's not there. It's improving. It certainly is better than it was, but it's a slow process and I have to be patient. But the other part is that they just help a lot. No matter how good of a runner you are, they really help you, especially when you get tired later in the race or later in your practice runs. They really do help you. The longer the race, the longer the training run, your mind isn't as sharp as it is in the beginning part of your race or your run. It really isn't. There's a lot of thought and a lot of brain power that goes into trail running. You can't just put your brain on pause and just run like you do on roads. Really. If you're on pavement, there's certain things you have to look out for, but it isn't like you have to constantly use your head to think all the time like you do on the trails. And the poles will help guide you, help balance you, and help keep you going better than not having them. They just are a wonderful help. But I do take my poles nearly every time I go on trails. The only exception is in the Presidio. I don't use them because I'm so familiar with those trails and they're not as challenging, so I don't need them there. But if I go to the headlands, oh yeah, I take them up there. Even on trails that I didn't need them before, I use them because, like I said, I'm not as sure as I used to be. And even on that one trail where I fell, yeah, I like using them there. But it's a real help for me. And maybe one day I won't need them anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'll always need them. Who knows? I can't predict the future. But let's get into the basics of trekking poles, and I'm going to cover all aspects of it, including how to buy them, how to use them, and how to pick out the best one for yourself. The first thing to go over is how to pick out the right trekking pole for you. There are two types of poles, carbon and aluminum. Almost all trekking poles use aluminum, carbon, or a combination of the two materials. Both materials are very durable, but there are some key differences to consider when you choose the best option for yourself. Carbon fiber poles are the gold standard for lightweight trekking poles. That's what I use, and I like it. I probably will never use aluminum because I've found the carbon works really well for me. Aluminum poles tend to have many of the same features as carbon poles, but are heavier weight and lower price point. Aluminum trekking poles, like the Black Diamond Distance Z trekking running poles or the Camp Xnon Pro 2, are generally made of 7075 aluminum, which is a strong, lightweight aluminum alloy with a high fatigue point. These poles are durable and can withstand the stress of pushing off the ground and being leaned on heavily. Under high stresses, aluminum poles are more likely to bend rather than break. Aluminum is less brittle than carbon fibers, so if you're really hard on your poles, you might consider aluminum, but they are a little heavier, so consider that as well. While no one wants to end up with damaged equipment on the trail, a bent pole can be usable, even if inconvenient, but a snapped pole, of course, is useless. That said, carbon fiber is more flexible and can be handled more of a lateral load than aluminum without damage. And you're not really supposed to lean on them, put your whole weight on a pole anyway. They're there as balance and to help push you off, but you're not supposed to use it like a crutch. Although I did when I hurt my shoulder, and it was fine. It worked out okay, just for a short time. Probably if I used it for longer, it probably wouldn't have lasted. Some users have noted increased vibration when striking the ground with an aluminum pole compared to a carbon one. The resin matrix of carbon can deform under a load, which means it can absorb vibration better than other materials, including aluminum. Like I said, this is a personal thing. My carbon poles have lasted through a long time for me and done well. The aluminum one, I don't know. I've never used one. Now, you want to choose the correct trekking pole size. Some poles are adjustable, so you can adjust it to your size. Others are not. Mine are not. Your height will give you a pretty good idea of the pole length you need. A simple way to determine the ideal length of a trekking pole for your body is to stand with your elbows flexed at approximately a 90-degree angle and your forearms parallel to the floor. The distance from your hands to the ground will approximately be the length you need for trekking poles. So your arm and your hands are parallel to the ground. Your trekking pole the grip should fit very nicely into your hand at that length. If it's too high or too low, the trekking pole is either too long or too short. If it's an adjustable pole, then you can adjust it to that length. If it's not, then you need to get another size. Most manufacturers provide a size chart or calculator on their website to help you determine the appropriate pole length based on a range of heights. If you're unsure which size to choose, consider the adjustable length pole, such as the Leakey Cross Trail FX Superlight. Now, that's super expensive. That's over $200. I think it's $250. Most trekking poles will be around $150 to $200, so they are not cheap. So if you break one, it's a really expensive replacement. But those Leakey ones, Lecky, those ones are the most expensive there are. And some people swear by them. I don't have one. I have Black Diamond. I like my Black Diamond. But like I said, your mileage may vary. You may like Lecky better. And if you want to spend $250 on trekking poles, go for it. One fact about running with poles before I go further. And I didn't find this on any website, and I'll put the websites down that I got information from, but this is from my own experience. Running with poles will tax your upper body strength. If you're weak in that area, now is the time to do some strength training if you want to use poles. You don't have to do a ton, but a little will go a long way. Some websites I read about did mention this briefly, but then they didn't go farther into it. So that's why I wanted to emphasize this, because it's kind of important. I think a good basic strength training program is fine. You can even do this just with your body strength or just with some dumbbells. If you want to go farther with it, that's fine. At the gym, that's fine. But just some great strength training would be nice just to get your shoulders and arms strong, because you will be using your arms a lot if you decide to use trekking poles. If I can use trekking poles after my shoulder replacement surgery, you should be fine. I did notice that on my Cool Moon, well, the part of the race that I did, my arms got very tired because I was very active with my poles most of the race. Also, if your poles have straps, now the Lecky ones apparently have a different fit. So if your poles just have regular loop straps, please use those straps correctly. There is a right way and a wrong way. The wrong way is to put your hands in over the top. The correct way is to have the strap above your hand and put your hand through the strap from below. Go up into the strap so that it wraps around your hand. You get a much more steady hold and it just works better. That is the proper way to hold your trekking pole. Running with poles can be quite different than hiking with poles. When you are hiking or backpacking with trekking poles, more often than not, you will use the technique that alternates leg with the alternate pole. So left leg, right pole, right leg, left pole, that kind of thing. And you will just use that just to keep you going at a steady pace throughout your hike. And you can use that for part of your run if you decide to walk in your run or your race and you're tired and you just want to keep the poles, you want to keep using the poles to keep your pace going steady. You can use that. That's the regular hiking use of poles. And you can use that during a race to keep yourself going if you're tired and you just want to keep walking. That's a nice way of using it. Yes, you can do that. But there are other ways that runners use poles, and you'll probably use these other ways more frequently. The difference in running is that you won't use your poles all the time. If the trail is level and smooth, and it's not at the end of the race or you're not extremely tired, you probably won't need your poles. Most runners only use their poles either downhill or uphill. Now, runners can also get help from their poles if the trail is extremely rocky or rooty. Sometimes during your race, you will use the poles in the same way as a hiker, as I explained. Now, during uphill terrain is the most popular use of trails for runners. In steeper terrain, or terrain that contains steps or very rocky, steep uphill, the preferred technique is to use both poles and take 3 steps. So reach your poles up the step or up the trail and begin applying force to the poles as you step through your poles. Continue pushing by extending your tricep until you are past your poles, then bringing them up again. This allows you to hoist yourself up onto the higher terrain and will also stabilize you during the step-up motion, which is particularly useful in technical or even off-camber terrain. This is really a nice technique and will help save you a lot of energy when you're going in this really, really hard uphill. On gradual uphills or flats late in the race, you can use your poles or give your running stride a little extra oomph, therefore increasing stride length and speed. Like I said earlier, sorry about that. However, you can also use the poles to help you steady if the uphill is steep. You don't necessarily need them to pull you up, but you may need them to keep you from slipping. This is what I use, and this is not on any website. This is just me. If it's rainy or if it's a muddy or slippery surface, those poles can help keep you upright. And you can just make small steps as you go uphill and just use those poles just to keep you from slipping or sliding down or falling. This is a technique that I use personally, and I didn't see this mentioned anywhere, but maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who has problems with slippery or muddy uphills. Somehow I don't think so. Somehow I think other people do too. Maybe the experts don't. Maybe those coaches who make those videos, maybe they do just great on those uphills, those muddy uphills, and the rest of us are struggling. I don't know. I seem to have problems with it. I have problems on terrain where everyone else doesn't. So There you go. That's what makes my podcast so different from everybody else's. If you have trouble on that terrain like I do, you've come to the right place. Welcome, friend. Oh my goodness. Okay, now on downhill. Now, downhill scares me more than uphill. And maybe that's different. Maybe I'm different than everybody else. But downhill, really steep downhill, scares the ever-loving daylights out of me. I can deal with steep uphills better than I can deal with steep downhills. As long as I have my poles, I can do those steep downhills. But if I see a steep downhill, like in training, if I'm going on a trail on training and I see one way and then one way is a steep downhill, another way is going up some more and maybe a more gradual downhill, I'll go up some more to the gradual downhill. I will not go down a steep downhill without trekking poles. I just will not do it. Poles on the downhill can be used to help give balance or brake if necessary. Oh, it's necessary, all right. In this way, the poles will need to be placed in front of the foot strike, and each pole will be removed from the ground near where your body moves through the poles. A lot of runners don't need this. They can just bound through these steep downhills, just use it and just go faster. I can't do that. I really, really can't do that. Terrain needs to be processed at a faster speed during the downhills, and the fact that you are trying to coordinate 4 points of contact further complicates the matter. Well, some of us don't go faster downhill. Some of us go very slowly because it scares us. So we go real super slow and careful because we don't want to fall. Because if we do that fast pace, we're going to fall. So that's that. If you're not sure and you don't want to go faster, those poles will help keep you upright, not falling. I.e., not falling, I should say. So, there's a few questionable areas in the headlands that scare me, and I use my poles, I can do it just fine, and I feel great afterwards because I actually got down them in one piece. That makes me happy. I don't care about going fast. I just want to get down in one piece. Yes. Those much younger runners than they can go down quickly. Going fast is not important to me. Not important at all. If you're an older runner and you're not sure about the trails, poles can really help you. They can keep you balanced. They can keep you going if you're tired. If you are not used to picking up your feet so much and you're on a rocky trail, they can remind you to not shuffle. One of the problems is that road runners, when they start going on trails for the first times, they're used to shuffling on roads. You cannot shuffle on the trail. If you shuffle on the trail, you will fall. You cannot shuffle. It's a different sport entirely, really. You can't do the little shuffle on a trail. You have to pick up your feet. And you really have to pick up your knees. It isn't even picking up your feet. It's picking up your knees. You have to pick up your knees and run a little differently than you did on the road. The poles will be there to help you, to keep you from falling if you do happen to maybe catch your foot on a rock. The pole might help you from not falling and keep you upright. Maybe. It may not, but it might be there. It might be a little safety net, perhaps. Now, even if you're a younger runner, they can help. You may not want to use it on the flats, but you may want to use it on the uphill or maybe a very steep downhill that you're not used to. There are some hills that are so steep that make all of us get butterflies in our stomachs once in a while. Even the most experienced runner uses poles once in a while. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with getting help from tools that are there for us. Europeans use it all the time. They don't use pacers, so they think that's kind of weird, but they use poles all the time. So don't feel shy about using poles. Don't think that you're not tough if you use poles. This whole thing about staying hard, all that stuff is really stupid anyway, so it's passé. Let's get over it and get yourself some poles and enjoy using them because it's a nice tool to have. You can get one of those nice utility belts from Ultimate Direction and put them on and stash them there until you use it again. It works great. Now, to buy some trekking poles, the cost will run anywhere from you're going to spend, if you want to buy some real cheap ones, they will be maybe around $100, maybe a little less, but I don't know about the quality of anything less than $100. I would be very careful about that, but they will run anywhere from $100 upwards of a little bit more than $250. So you're going to run in that kind of range. The different brands are Black Diamond, Lecky, Gossamer, MSR, REI, Z-Packs, Ultra Trail, and there are a few off-brands, but like I said, be very careful of those off-brands. I don't know how good they are. I don't know what the quality. So you're taking a chance. I would stick with brands that are well-known, that are sold at places like REI or at the running stores know about, or that have been, or that have been reviewed by known running websites. Stick with what we know. Don't try to go cheap. There's certain things you can go cheap on. You can't go cheap on this kind of thing because you're expecting it to work and to actually help you. If it breaks at the wrong time, you could get hurt. It could really, really affect you and physically and not in a good way. So just do it right. All right, so that is all about poles, and that should help you if you decide to use poles in your race or your training, or both. Speaking of training, okay, my running is going pretty well. I had one of the best runs in months last week. It was really, really good. I felt really good about it, so I plan to get some good runs in after I record this. I'm going to go out for a run, get some runs in this week. It's my long weekend, so I can get some good running in, and I'll take care of that. And yeah, I feel pretty good. I wasn't very good about my eating, so I have to take care of that. I have to get serious about that. But it's all in good time, and I do have the time to do it. So I do. It's easier. I think it will be easier to do that than when I'm training for a race, because you can't really lose weight if you're training for a race. You can't. And I'm not really training for a race yet. I'm not getting serious about my 5-mile Thanksgiving race yet. When I get serious about that, then I'm not going to be able to lose weight. But until then, I should be able to. So I gotta knuckle down and get serious. And I will, I promise. All right, so that is today's show, and that is that. So I hope you gained an interest or at least got some information about trekking poles and make a decision whether you want them or not. I certainly love mine, and that I don't think will change for a while. So I'm going to put some links on the website at martharunstheworld.com, and all the information that I talked about will be there at martharunstheworld.com. If you want to email me, it's martharunstheworld@gmail.com. And until next week, let's tie up our shoelaces and go for a run.